back in past you. Another associated with this airfield rolling out in the form of the Mustang. Representing the Eastern Front in today's display, the two Hispano Buchons and the Royal Yak 3. Known as the Tuskegee Airmen, but otherwise known as the Red Tails, the first.
No, not sure. Maybe. Oh, maybe? No.
Oh, is he going that way or that way?
He's going towards us.
Oh,
no, he is going. Alright, let me try this.
Yeah, he's turning.
Shh.
Ah.
I'm not sure.
And there, with a lovely demonstration of the classic curved fighter style approach, forward visibility to premium in the first Merlin Mustang took to the air before the end of 1942. The rightness of the combination of aircraft and engine was rapidly proved, very soon serving with the 99th Fighter Squadron as part of that group within the 15th Air Force in Italy. Now a representative of the Soviet fighters of World War II getting airborne in the form of the Yak 3. That'll be back with us a little later. Was an outfit that's known as the North Squadron, officially known for its Merlin engine. The story is well known but bears the repeating. When North American came up in record time with its new fighter aircraft, originally designated as the NA-73 and conceived to meet a requirement of a British Purchasing Commission in New York searching for new fighter types for the Royal Air Force, it did so with an airframe powered by the Allison V1710 engine. That's an outstanding aero engine in its own right. And the Mustang airframe was tremendously slippery, aerodynamically efficient, and high, particularly in the tactical reconnaissance and ground attack roles. One of them was brought here to Duxford for evaluation by the Air Fighting Development Unit, the outfit I mentioned earlier as one of the 10 units here during wartime. trailing smoke, the two Hispano HA1112 Buchons. This, of course, the Spanish being a type that's regularly featured as a film star in such famous productions as Battle of Britain, Memphis Belle and Dunkirk, is also an aircraft type with a very significant combat record in its own right. A saga that led to that rather ironic combination. The Spanish connection with the 109 itself went back to the Spanish Civil War and the Legion Condor, Germans operating with Franco's nationalist forces. They began using the aircraft as early as mid-1937. When the conflict ended in April 1939, nearly 50 Bf-109s were left for use by the Spanish Air Force, and yet more were delivered new from the Messerschmitt factory in Germany. The Spanish company Hispano Buchon obtained a license to build the Bf-109G prime Soviet fighters of the Second World War. The first of that line was the Yak-1, which passed its Soviet state testing in early 1940. That design was modified, it was made... completing his sequence.
You can't even hear it.
If this was in PS thingy, yeah. I bet the co-pilot would be, give me full, give me full, give me full.
Right, turning.
Oh, he's drifting. In a cocky.
Serving airworthy resident of this airfield, stationed here since 1975 when it first arrived on the UK display circuit. It's been a fixture ever since, and here it is on the roll, the Boeing B-17G Flying Fortress, named Sally B. This aircraft acting as a permanent flying memorial to The tens of thousands of Allied airmen who lost their lives in the European theatre during the Second World War, but especially to the men of the 8th US Army Air Force, he remained in the Air Force afterwards, and was highly respected because of the fact that he performed not only missions during the Second World War, but he remained as an active serviceman after the war. You said earlier, Ben, that there were many thousand stewards. Indeed.
That's something that doesn't change in wartime. The average age is about 19.
And the heroism was so considerable when, even more than that, you consider the sort of missions they were being thrown into, flying and operating not just the B-17s, but also the consolidated B-24 Liberators. The main tactic of the 8th Air Force, daylight raids against German industrial facilities and transport and resupply networks. And in the early part of their commitment to the European theatre, let's not forget, they didn't really have a suitable escort fighter. They were using Spitfires, which were very short-ranged as escorts, and so the losses on those missions were horrendous.
They were, and we saw earlier the Mustang, and we talked about the impact that made, and the impact that it made was in fact in support of the bombing campaign of the Americans over the central part of Europe.
Indeed, because when both the P-47 Thunderbolts, which you can see one of the American enemies in, and the Mustang came along, they really did change that situation. But nonetheless, even with that extra fighter protection, the conditions on board the B-17s at altitude were appalling. Of course, it was a noisy and cold environment. Mutual fire support against fighter attacks, or later, when Luftwaffe fighters became less of a danger in the European theatre, by minimising or trying to minimise the aircraft's exposure to flak. And this was always wing was deemed to be good against fighters. They then restricted that down to a sort of 36 aircraft combat box, which became standard by early 1944. And the B-17 was a good aeroplane to fly close formation in, better than the B-24.
The number of guns that the B-17 carried increased, of course, as the progress of the war continued. And we were mentioning flak there, and one thinks about flak as being very difficult to hit a B-17, but towards the latter stages of the war they were using radar guided flak, and flak actually accounted for more fallen B-17s
to be deployed operationally had 5.5-inch machine guns with just one in the nose. This is a B-17G model, very much the ultimate. 13 machine guns armed this aeroplane. And don't forget, it was felt to have been a very heavily defensively armed bomber even when it first appeared in 1935, hence being given the name Flying Fortress.
Yes.
But that was nothing compared with this aircraft. 2 machine guns in the chin turret, a bomb load between 4,500 and 8,000 pounds, depending on the mission, less than the B-24, which was longer range. You can see quite a small bomb bay on the B-17, but nonetheless, this aircraft made the most tremendous contribution alongside the B-24 to the efforts of the 8th Air Force, those daylight raids. was demonstrated. Nonetheless, 4 squadrons Lysanders were the last RAF aircraft to leave for England. It was his order of the Special Operations Executive, wasn't it, Colin, that the Lysander really earned its legendary name.
That's right, it was Churchill who set up the SOE to set Europe ablaze, and the French resistance.
So that'll be the Spitfire 1A, the Hurricane 1, the Hawk 75 and the Wildcat. And there they go, the Spit leading them off. Blenheim 1Fs, like this one, were briefly stationed at Duxford with number 222 Squadron, which was reformed here in October 1939 to protect Channel shipping. It converted to Spitfires during the spring of 1940, and in fact we have 2.
Right. But tactically, from the point of view of fighting, we didn't know any difference because we didn't know how to fight in a gauntlet. Nobody told us.
Plane fighters like the Spitfire was considerable as well, certainly in the RAF. Sergeant, later Wing Commander George Unwin was another of number 19 Squadron's first Spitfire pilots. By the end of 1940, he'd shot down 14 enemy aircraft, and he was awarded the Distinguished Flying Medal and Bar. He, a few years ago, outlined how that tactical developed. The Wildcat and the Hawk 75 both operated from Duxford by the Fighter Collection, the Wildcat in the colours of a late war Wildcat 5 model of the Fleet Air Arm of the Royal Navy, the Hawk in its original French Armée de l'Air colours. It then ended up in Algeria following on from the June 1940 armistice with Germany and flew with the Vichy French Air Arm in North Africa. So a veteran of both the Allied and Axis sides, very, very unusually. There's the Spitfire touching down, this incredibly potent anti-tank helicopter, but also used for other battlefield support roles. The Hip, one of the great workhorses as far as there's the Hip manoeuvring up. The Milne 8 helicopter was built to the tune of more than 17,000 examples and counting, the largest and longest production run of any helicopter in history, used extensively across the Soviet Union and throughout the Soviet sphere of influence. What followed, the Mi-17, an enhanced version with more powerful Klimov TD3 engines. That's basically what we see here, but as I said, in export form as the Mi-171. More than 12,000 Mi-17s and 171s have been built. An incredibly... 200mm machine guns in the door of the 517, which has also got a good deal of armour plating for the cockpit and the cabin. The Czechs use some of the fleet for rescue missions. They can also perform firefighting with an underslung so-called bandy bucket. These two helicopter types often perform, or would in the event of combat action, they certainly train regularly for this, perform as a team in the combat search and rescue role. Providing very effective cover to the ship as it would retrieve a downed airman from hostile territory. Climbing now to around 150 metres. This is a type I've wanted to see over Duxford for a very, very long time. That menacing silhouette of an attack helicopter that would have supported a Warsaw Pact armed advance across the North German plain. Nearly 90 Czechoslovak pilots flew during the Battle of Britain. Czechoslovak manned units, albeit also with senior RAF officers attached at those early stages. This is the reason why it's such a poignant appearance by these two helicopters this weekend. Now it's back to more familiar Duxford Battle of Britain Airshow fare. A Spitfire, but a rather different one. The first two units of the Air Cobras, the 31st Fighter Group arrived in the UK in May and June 1942. The 52nd followed up in July. They shared a lot of their history. They entered combat with their Spitfire 5s in August 1942. They supported the disastrous Allied landings on Dieppe. They escorted bombers, they flew patrol and diversionary missions. They were assigned to the 12th Air Force for the Salerno and Anzio, operating in close support of Allied ground forces in Italy and southern France. Then in April to May 1944, assigned to the 50th. To hand over to Tim Emrys-Roberts. Tim.
Thank you very much, Ben. And yes, it's a delight to be back here. Jeff is a former RAF fighter pilot, and then flying Phantoms, and then later became a captain with British Airways on the Airbus A320. Following behind him is Mike Vasey, a private pilot. On the right of David's sister, who leads that second Vic, we have Dickie Ababoto, a former RAF Tornado pilot, now living in Luxembourg, and he's flown over from Luxembourg just for the weekend to entertain you. And on the left is Jonathan Elwes, a private pilot who's done some amazing accomplishments, including in 1989 flying from England to Moscow. And this is at a time when of the Light Brigade over the exact turf in the Crimea, low level, not actually on the ground, because today there are buildings and there are vineyards in the way, so you couldn't even do it on the water. Dr. Jeremy Radcliffe, a former RAF officer, his aircraft still has the mounting points for wing walking apparatus. Indeed, it was a wing walking aircraft in its day, because although this was a military trainer, RAF training colours, so it's yellow all over with the randles on the wings and on the fuselage. Now, come the war, the upper surfaces of these aircraft were painted in camouflage, very much similar to that of the Queen, right to left in delta formation. Again, worth a photograph. And you should be aware that this is the only 9-aircraft team out there who fly sort of noisy red jets. I forget their name, but they're only putting up 7 aircraft this season. So this is the only 9-aircraft one, and here they are for you. Aircraft as their trainer is that this is an easy aircraft to fly, but a difficult aircraft to fly well. And these gentlemen, in these rather blustery conditions, certainly is up there, there's bouncing around a bit, you can see them doing it, they're flying these tremendously well. And the clever thing there is that if the man near the inside goes and bounces a bit, his wingman tends to bounce a bit more, and the one on the outside will then waver greatly. So the key is to go and look. This is the display team of the de Havilland Moth Club, which is the club that helps with the maintenance and the flying of these gorgeous vintage machines. Bear in mind, these are all between 80 and 90 years old. And the team was established in 2005 and performs roughly 12 shows a year, and indeed is performed in France and in Switzerland, and is proud to be sponsored by Poulies, the flight equipment specialists. Much coveted and previously won by the Red Arrows. And here they come from left to right in a big Vic formation. So the same as you saw with the earlier Vics, but this time involving the whole team. And this is particularly where it's difficult to try and make sure you don't overreact to any input by a man on the inside of the formation. Beautifully done. Worth a photo. And the Eli, amongst you might notice, they're being flown from the rear cockpit. They have 2 cockpits, a front one and a rear one. The front one is up by the cloud. They'll be soon diving towards you, building up speed to about 110 miles an hour. To get that height. Now they're running in for the box break. Any second now, get ready with those cameras. And braking now. Lovely. And then Nigel Lemon in the Moth Major bringing up the rear with a half Cuban. Boyd 8-1, ridden by Jeff Milson. Then we have Moth Broth 9-2, ridden by Nigel Lemon. Then by Dickie Alberta. Then it's Wind in the Wires 15-1, ridden by Mike Vasey. A flying finish indeed, and the team will now be making their landings. But that's not it, it's not over. They're going to do something that's unusual, which is a synchronized shutdown. Authentic livery, training colors for RAF planes. Adam's wife Sarah is here in the audience. Of them, of which no fewer than 1,000 are still in existence, of which 650 are flying today. And here they're starting.
Well, he's now going to clear across the airfield, ready to leave the stage clear for one of our favourite big display teams here. FG1D Corsair, leading the FATF Bearcat. Soon, the early jets of the US Navy, the likes of the F-2H Banshee and the F-9F Panther were coming into service with the first line squadrons, but second line and training units used them. They also flew with the French and Royal Thai Air Forces, the French aircraft being used in the Indo-China conflict of the 1950s. But at the same time, there was a need to give the propeller sufficient ground clearance, hence the configuration we see. This was a very impressive performer when first it appeared, the Corsair, for a maiden flight in May 1940. The Pratt & Whitney R2800 double Wasp radial engine of 2,000 horsepower was the most powerful and largest. However, in spite of being this was also an aircraft that saw much service with the Fleet Air Arm of the Royal Navy. It entered service with the FAA in June 1943. At its peak with the Royal Navy, Corsairs equipped 18 squadrons in both the Pacific and what's not perhaps quite so well known, the European theatres. Rather contrasting operations, Corsair on launch, let alone the flight controls. Frontline US Navy squadrons, Bearcats, they were one of the early mounts of the US Navy demonstration team, the Blue Angels. And that was flown for us by the chief pilot of the fighter collection, Pete Kinsey. Well, I'm afraid that because of the rain, shots by Bearcats were quite an experience for the pilots if they were using the rather violent catapults of the day.
This afternoon. And if you're enjoying the Duxford Battle of Britain Airshow today, then we invite you to join as an IWM member. If you do that, you'll get free general admission to Duxford all year. Members also receive priority booking to all IWM Duxford shows and flying days. When you support the IWM as a member, you can visit all of our sites for free here at Duxford, but also Churchill Ballrooms, the IWM London, the IWM North, and also HMS Belfast. Visit us today at one of the membership points, situated all around the site, and you'll discover the benefits of becoming a member. You can't miss us. We're located,
And of course, with such magnificent performance for many, many years, they've made outstanding unlimited class air races at places like Reno in the States.
the directions that are going to be offered to you. If you're in the western side of the airfield, if you're parked up there, then you will be turned left when you leave this afternoon. There are links to the A1, the A10, the A11, the A14 and the M11 on the outskirts of Royston, which is just a few miles down the road.
Scored numerous outright and shared kills. When France itself fell, he escaped to the UK, coming via Casablanca over to Gibraltar. He commissioned into the RAF at the start of August 1940, initially flying Mark I Spitfires, the No. 19 Squadron, which was then detached away from Duxford to the satellite station at Falmere, just down the road, claiming a Messerschmitt BF-110 and two Heinkel HE-111s destroyed, as well as two BF-109s as probables. Then in January 1941, Corsair was put into the strength of No. 310 Squadron, stationed here at Duxford, before it re-equipped with the Spitfire MK XIV. So a very definite Duxford That's also one of two Spitfires on the flight line, the other being the Anglia Aircraft Restorations Mark V. That's a few down to the west in the line that are known to have escorted. The Czech Air Force is deeply proud of the wartime connections between its present-day units and those that served as part of the wartime Royal Air Force, and you can see that from the colour scheme on this particular Mi-35, which salutes the only Czechoslovak bomber squadron of World War II, No. 311 Squadron. It flew both Vickers Wellingtons and Consolidated Liberators, and on one helicopter's base at Náměšť nad Oslavou holds the traditions of No. 311 Squadron, and so it is that those markings are carried so proudly by the Mi-35, now performing, enhanced by Snoke, a solo display. Czechoslovakia was among several quick reaction alert air defence duties against slow-moving targets alongside their standard battlefield tasks. A total of 62 Hinds were delivered to what was then Czechoslovakia between 1982 and 92. When the country broke up, 34 of them were transferred to the Czech Air Force. Then in 2003, in part payment of a Russian debt, 10 new Mi-35s, including this one, were taken onto strength. They're generally used by the Czech Air Force for close support duties, And the Czechs have also supported the new Afghan Air Force's operations of this type of helicopter. But now just 17 of them are in service with only one squadron. As I say, it's the 221st Helicopter Squadron, which is one of, with a Tiger or nowadays also other forms of Big Cat in their emblems. All of these helicopters have been fully upgraded to NATO standards. There was a time when the thought of Heinz operating as part of NATO was unthinkable, but now, since the late 1990s, it's been reality. But this is to be the last appearance at a British Airshow this weekend of the Hind in Czech Air Force service, because they're due for retirement around the turn of the year. Nonetheless, this is still a very, very potent attack helicopter. The standard of their performances, whether solo or duo, has remained very high since then. More than 40 years of service, it'll be a very sad day for the Czech Air Force when the last examples of this mighty machine go out of service. Putting the undercarriage down there, in fact, newer Mi-35 models in production in Russia have been equipped with a fixed undercarriage as opposed to retractable. Visits to other UK air shows over the years, including a 3-ship team of them. There's also a good deal of Tiger striping, reflecting this unit's membership of the NATO Tigers. of its final displays in Czech Air Force service. It's worth reflecting that the days of the Warsaw Pact era hardware in the Federal Aviation Administration several private owners before in 1980 it was acquired by one of the leading lights for so many years of the historic aircraft scene in the UK, Robs Lamplough. He operated it from Duxford for several seasons in the early 80s and then put it into long-term storage. And it was while it was in his ownership that it was painted in these unusual colours. You can see, if you've had a look at it on the ground, it has a rather odd serial number, PB1. This means it depicts the personal aircraft of His Royal Highness Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands while he was exiled in London from 1941 to 45. Prince in his colours at an air show in Hilversum in 1980. He also took one scheduled to be made up of no fewer than 16 Supermarine Spitfires and 4 Hawker Hurricanes. We're also going to see a recent returnee to the British scene, the quite beautiful red and silver marked Spitfire F14E with the serial RN201 owned by Aerial Speed Icons, looked after by the Aircraft Restoration Company here. That aeroplane's decidedly non-standard colour scheme, that of a Mark 21 Spitfire that was flown by number 41 Squadron at the Blackpool Air Racers meeting in 1947. This aeroplane was operated on the UK circuit for several years in previous ownership from 2002, then went off to the United States. More recently it's returned, and this is going to be its first. A quite remarkable combat veteran, not least in the hands of South African Flight Lieutenant Henry Lardner-Burt. History, it was accompanied by another Mark 9 just a little earlier in the production run with the serial NH415. They sit today together on the flight line and will fly together in this formation. On the 19th of August 1943. These brand new aircraft have an Air Bomb Group, US Army Air Forces, who were attacking the Luftwaffe airfield at Poix-en-Picardie in France on a ramrod. Spitfires and 4 Hurricanes now all fired up. Blaster start engines, the 3 Mark 1As, these due to their additional risk of overheating compared with the later Marks. And they're now on the move with N3200 in their lead. Spitfire in the formation today, that Mark 14 of Aerial Speed Icons. July 1940 is the date officially recognised as the start of the Battle of Britain, the first phase being to destroy coastal objectives and channel shipping. The 3,000 or so airmen officially credited with involvement in the battle, including those from 15 overseas countries, are forever known as the Few, after the phrase spoken by Winston Churchill in the Commons on the 20th of August 1940, and which heralds the arrival of our Duxford wing of Hurricanes and Spitfires.
The gratitude of every home in our island, in our empire, and indeed throughout the world, except in the abodes of the guilty, goes out to the British airmen who, undaunted by odds, unwearied in their constant challenge and nature, are turning the tide of the world war by their pride and by their devotion. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few.
It's on Thursday this coming week, the 15th of September, every year, that we commemorate Battle of Britain Day.
But I'm manual anyway.